Ambassador Kythara adjusted her breathing apparatus for the third time in 10 minutes, watching the viewing screen display the approaching human delegation ship. After 17 cycles serving the Galactic Peace Council, she thought she had seen everything. Apparently, she was wrong. "Ma am," her aide Zoran whispered, his voice trembling slightly. "The humans have sent their diplomatic corps again. No military escort, no armed guards, just civilians." Kythara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a nervous habit she had developed whenever dealing with Earth's representatives. "Zoran, remind me again why every other species in the galaxy considers humans the most terrifying warriors in known space." "Well, Mayam." There was the siege of Proxima 7 where 3 human soldiers held off an entire Krellian battle fleet for 6 rotations. Then the incident at the vegan trade routes where a single human freighter captain somehow convinced a pirate armada to surrender using nothing but colorful language. And let's not forget the Great Mollusk War where humans ended a 1,000-year conflict in 47 minutes by doing something they called aggressive negotiations. "Right," Kythara muttered, her tentacles twitching anxiously. "So why, in the name of the cosmic void, do they always send their diplomats to peace talks? Every other civilization brings their most decorated generals, their battle-hardened admirals, their scariest warriors. The Gornathi bring their death speaker. The Vex Coalition sends their flesh renders. Even the peaceful Etherian Collective brings their battle monks." "Perhaps," Zoran suggested hopefully, "humans have finally realized that peace talks should actually involve peaceful beings?" Kythara gave him a look that could have frozen plasma. "Zoran, you sweet, naive fool. Humans don't do anything without a reason. There's always a reason." The docking bay announced the arrival of the human vessel with a series of pleasant chimes that somehow managed to sound ominous when you knew who was aboard. Through the transparent steel windows, they watched as the humans disembarked. Leading the group was a middle-aged woman with graying hair, wearing what appeared to be a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons, medals, or intimidating features whatsoever. "That's Director Maya Vasquez," Zoran read from his datapad, head of Earth's Diplomatic Solutions Department. "Former teacher, has 3 children, enjoys gardening and ancient Earth literature. No military background whatsoever." "Tersau, former teacher?" Kythara's voice rose an octave. "They sent us someone whose primary job was educating younglings." Behind Director Vasquez walked a lanky man in his 30s, adjusting wire-rimmed spectacles and carrying what looked like a briefcase full of documents. His name tag read Dr. Felix Kumar, Cultural Exchange Specialist. He had the appearance of someone who got nervous ordering food at restaurants, let alone negotiating interstellar treaties. The third human was a woman who couldn't have been older than 25 standard cycles, with bright pink hair and multiple earrings. She wore casual clothes that would have been more appropriate for a recreational outing than a galactic peace summit. Her badge identified her as Specialist Luna Park, Communications and Social Media Liaison. "Social Media Liaison," Zoran squeaked. "They brought someone whose job is to post messages on electronic networks." Kythara watched the humans approach the main conference chamber, noting how they walked. No military precision, no intimidating formation, no show of force. Director Vasquez was chatting pleasantly with Dr. Kumar about something that made him laugh. Luna was taking pictures of the space station's architecture with a small device, occasionally stopping to admire the decorative plants. "This is either the most brilliant psychological warfare I've ever witnessed," Kythara mused, "or humans are completely insane." "Could it be both, Mayam, Zoran?" "I'm beginning to think that's exactly what it is." The conference chamber fell silent as the human delegation entered. Around the massive circular table sat representatives from 47 different civilizations, each accompanied by their most fearsome military leaders. The Draconian Empire had brought General Scythe Claw, whose mere presence had reportedly caused 3 diplomats to faint during the pre-meeting briefings. The Hive Collective's War Queen Mandible Death sat motionless, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights like twin dark suns. And then there were the humans, taking their seats with the casual air of people attending a neighborhood committee meeting. Director Vasquez smiled warmly at the assembled gathering. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. I brought homemade cookies if anyone would like some later." The silence that followed could have been cut with a molecular blade, or Queen Mandible Death's translator crackled to life. "Cookies? What manner of weapon is this cookies?" "Oh, they're not weapons," Dr. Kumar chimed in cheerfully. "They're a sweet baked good. Maya makes excellent chocolate chip cookies. I had 3 on the shuttle ride over." General Scythe Claw leaned forward, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the humans. "You mock us with talk of baked goods, while your species holds the record for most creative battlefield victories in galactic history." Luna looked up from her communication device, where she had been typing rapidly. "Oh, that. Yeah, we don't really like talking about the war stuff. It's kind of depressing, you know. Fighting is such a drag. We'd much rather work things out over coffee and pastries." Ambassador Kythara watched this exchange with growing fascination and terror. She had attended peace summits where species had declared war over less diplomatically insulting behavior. Yet somehow, the humans' casual dismissal of their own legendary military prowess was having the opposite effect. The other delegates were looking increasingly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and exchanging worried glances. The Etherian Collective's battle monk spoke next, his voice resonating with harmonic frequencies that usually preceded acts of violence. "Human Director Vasquez, your species' military achievements are legendary. The Battle of Kepler Station alone should have earned you a place among the great warrior cultures. Yet you send teachers and communication specialists." Director Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. "Well, you see, we've found that our military personnel can be a bit intense for these kinds of gatherings. They tend to solve problems very efficiently, which doesn't always leave much room for discussion." "Efficiently how?" demanded the Krellian representative, his scales rippling with agitation. Dr. Kumar pushed his glasses up his nose. "Oh, you know how military folks are. Someone presents a problem, they immediately start calculating the most direct solution, usually involving what they call applied physics and rapid structural modification of opposing forces." "Applied physics?" War Queen Mandible Death's antennae twitched rapidly. "Explosions," Luna translated helpfully, not looking up from her device. "They mean explosions. Lots and lots of explosions. It's like their default answer to everything. How do we get past this obstacle?" "Explosions. How do we remove this threat?" "More explosions. How do we make a dramatic entrance?" "You guessed it. Explosions." The chamber fell silent again. But this time the quality of the silence had changed. It was no longer confused silence. It was the kind of silence that happens when predators realize they might not be at the top of the food chain. Director Vasquez continued, seemingly oblivious to the shift in atmosphere. "That's exactly why we prefer to handle diplomatic matters ourselves. Our military friends are wonderful people. Don't get me wrong, but they approach problems from a very different perspective. For instance, when we told Admiral Thompson about this peace summit, her first question was whether she should bring the gentle antimatter torpedoes or the conversation starters." "Conversation starters?" General Scythe Claw's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. "That's what she calls the planet crackers," Dr. Kumar explained matter-of-factly. "She has this theory that nothing gets people talking like the knowledge that their entire world could be split in half at any moment. Personally, I think it's a bit aggressive for diplomacy, but you have to admire her commitment to opening dialogue." Ambassador Kythara found herself taking notes, though she wasn't sure why. Something about the way the humans discussed their military capabilities with such casual disregard was deeply disturbing. They spoke about planet-destroying weapons the way most species discussed garden tools. Luna finally looked up from her device, grinning broadly. "Oh wow. This is getting so many likes. I just posted a picture of everyone around the table with the caption 'Another boring peace talk. Wish we brought the fun stuff.' The comments are hilarious." "Fun stuff?" The question came from multiple delegates simultaneously. "You know, The toys the military wanted to bring. Admiral Rivera was super disappointed when we told her to leave the reality warping cannons at home. She spent weeks calibrating them specifically for diplomatic demonstrations. Reality warping cannons, War Queen Mandible Death repeated slowly. Oh yeah, they're new, Dr. Kumar said proudly. The physics department figured out how to make small localized adjustments to the fundamental constants of reality. Nothing too dramatic. Just enough to make enemy weapons stop working, or gravity reverse itself, or time flow backwards for a few seconds. The military loves them because they call it creative problem solving. Director Vasquez nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of thinking we're trying to avoid in peace negotiations. Military solutions tend to be very final, and we prefer outcomes where everyone gets to go home and tell their families about their day. The draconian representative, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. Director Vasquez, are you suggesting that Earth's military personnel would be disruptive to peace negotiations? Oh goodness, yes, she laughed. Last time we brought Colonel Martinez to a diplomatic function. He ended up redesigning the entire space station's defense grid during the cocktail hour, just for fun. He said the existing setup had 17 critical vulnerabilities, and he could fix them in 20 minutes with some spare parts and what he called basic modifications. He militarized your space station as a social activity? Ambassador Kythara found herself asking. Militarized is such a strong word, Luna interjected. He just made some improvements, added a few defensive capabilities, installed some early warning systems, upgraded the power core to support emergency combat operations. You know, basic hospitality upgrades. Dr. Kumar nodded enthusiastically. The best part was when he explained his work to the station commander. Poor Commander Telgrath spent 3 hours just staring at the blueprints, muttering something about impossible engineering and physics-defying architecture. Commander Telgrath is considered one of the finest military engineers in the galaxy, General Scythe Claw said slowly. Oh, I'm sure he is, Director Vasquez agreed politely. Martinez mentioned that the existing design showed real creativity, especially given the technological limitations. He was quite impressed with the use of what he called primitive but functional energy distribution systems. The insult hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Commander Telgrath's defensive systems, pride of the Galactic Engineering Corps, had just been dismissed as primitive but functional by a human colonel who had apparently improved them during a cocktail party. War Queen Mandible Death's compound eyes glittered dangerously. And where, exactly, is this Colonel Martinez now? Oh, he's back on Earth. Probably working on some new project, Luna said cheerfully. Last I heard, he was collaborating with the Space Weather Division on something called tactical meteorology. I don't really understand it, but apparently they're teaching hurricanes to follow orders. Teaching hurricanes to follow orders, Ambassador Kythara repeated, her voice completely flat. Climate warfare, Dr. Kumar clarified helpfully. Martinez thinks traditional weapons are too obvious. He prefers what he calls environmental persuasion. Why blow up an enemy base when you can just ask a tornado to relocate it? Director Vasquez glanced at her timepiece. Speaking of which, we should probably get started with today's agenda. I know everyone has busy schedules, and I'd hate to keep you longer than necessary. She opened her briefcase and withdrew a stack of documents that looked suspiciously normal for a galactic peace summit. No exotic materials, no holographic displays, no quantum encrypted data crystals, just paper. Regular, everyday paper. Now then, Den, she said brightly. Today we're here to discuss the territorial dispute between the Gornathi Empire and the Vex Coalition regarding the neutral trade zone. I've prepared some preliminary suggestions for resolution, along with economic impact assessments and cultural compatibility matrices. The Gornathi Death Speaker, a creature whose very presence usually caused diplomatic incidents, found himself leaning forward to get a better look at the human woman's paperwork. You analyzed our territorial requirements, of course. It's basic diplomatic preparation. Dr. Kumar spent 3 weeks studying both cultures to understand the underlying motivations behind your competing claims. Turns out, this whole dispute could be resolved with some creative scheduling and a shared resource management protocol. Dr. Kumar beamed with academic pride. It's really quite fascinating when you dig into the cultural anthropology. The Gornathi need the trade routes for their seasonal migration patterns, but only during certain galactic alignments. The Vex coalition requires the mineral rights, but their extraction cycles don't overlap with Gornathi travel seasons. With proper coordination, both species can have exactly what they need without conflict. The silence that followed was different from the previous silences. This was the silence of beings realizing that their centuries-old conflict might have a simple, logical solution that no one had bothered to calculate. War Queen Mandible Death spoke slowly. You resolved our territorial dispute with scheduling and some basic resource allocation optimization, Luna added, still typing on her device. Plus a conflict resolution framework based on mutual benefit analysis. Honestly, it's like you guys never heard of compromise. The death speaker's voice carried a note of something that might have been admiration or terror. In 3 weeks of study, you accomplished what our greatest military minds have failed to achieve in 2 centuries of warfare? Director Vasquez looked genuinely puzzled. Well, yes, but that's because military minds approach problems differently. They're trained to eliminate obstacles, not work around them. This kind of diplomatic puzzle is exactly what we're trained for. General Scythe Claw repeated. You are trained specifically for this type of conflict resolution? Oh, absolutely. Dr. Kumar said enthusiastically. Human diplomatic training is quite intensive. We study game theory, cultural psychology, economic modeling, behavioral prediction algorithms, social dynamics, and advanced negotiation tactics. Director Vasquez has 17 different certifications in conflict resolution methodologies. Luna looked up with a grin. Plus, she has that scary teacher voice that makes everyone want to behave. You should hear her when she gets serious. It's like a weapon. A weapon? Ambassador Kythara asked weakly. Not literally, Director Vasquez laughed. Though I did have to use my classroom management techniques on a Krellian war fleet once. They were being quite disruptive during a trade negotiation. You used classroom management techniques on a war fleet, War Queen Mandible Death stated. They were acting like unruly children, she explained reasonably, interrupting speakers, making threats, generally being disrespectful. So I told them that if they couldn't behave appropriately, they could wait outside until they were ready to participate constructively. And they complied? Well, after I explained the consequences of continued disruption, nothing too severe. Just some basic disciplinary measures, restricted communication privileges, temporary suspension of trade benefits, that sort of thing. Standard behavior modification protocols. Dr. Kumar nodded approvingly. Maya has this gift for making people want to cooperate. It's probably from all those years managing teenagers. Compared to a classroom full of 17-year-olds, interstellar warlords are remarkably well-behaved. The assembled delegates sat in what was becoming a familiar stunned silence as they processed this information. The humans had just casually revealed that their diplomatic corps was trained to the same level of intensive specialization as most species' military elites, led by individuals who considered managing teenagers adequate preparation for intimidating galactic warlords. Ambassador Kythara finally found her voice. Director Vasquez, may I ask what would happen if diplomatic solutions prove insufficient? The human woman's smile never wavered, but something in her eyes shifted slightly. For just a moment, the assembled delegates caught a glimpse of something that made their various survival instincts start sending urgent warnings. Oh, Director Vasquez said pleasantly, in that case, we'd have to call in the specialists. Specialists? Multiple voices asked in unison. Luna giggled. That's what we call the military when we're trying to be polite. Trust me, you don't want to meet the specialists. They're way less fun than we are. The word specialists seemed to echo in the conference chamber long after Director Vasquez had spoken it. Ambassador Kythara noticed that several delegates had unconsciously leaned back in their chairs, and as if distance could somehow protect them from whatever implications that simple word carried. General Scythe Claw's cybernetic components whirred audibly as he processed threat assessments. These specialists, they would be your military personnel? Dr. Kumar adjusted his glasses nervously. Well, yes, technically speaking. Though calling them military personnel is a bit like calling a supernova a small light. It's accurate but doesn't really capture the full scope of the situation. Luna had stopped typing on her device entirely, which Ambassador Kythara was beginning to realize was a bad sign. The thing is, Bess, Luna said, twirling a strand of pink hair around her finger, our military doesn't really do proportional response. They have two settings. Off and wholly cosmic void. What just happened? Could you elaborate on that? War Queen Mandible Death requested, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely sure she wanted to know. Director Vasquez sighed. The way teachers do when they have to explain why a student's creative solution to a math problem inadvertently violated several laws of physics. Last month, Captain Rivers was asked to deal with some space pirates harassing civilian shipping lanes. Standard procedure would be to deploy a patrol ship, maybe two, engage the pirates, arrest the survivors. That sounds reasonable. The Etherian battle monk ventured hopefully. It would have been. Dr. Kumar agreed. Unfortunately, Captain Rivers interpreted deal with the pirates as eliminate piracy as a concept in this sector. When the smoke cleared, he had somehow convinced 3 separate pirate fleets to form a legitimate shipping cooperative, restructured the entire regional economy, and accidentally created a new form of interstellar commerce law. Accidentally? Ambassador Kythara's voice climbed several octaves. Rivers has a degree in economic warfare, Luna explained. He figured that if you eliminate the economic incentives for piracy while simultaneously providing more profitable legal alternatives, you solve the root cause instead of just the symptoms. Very efficient, very thorough, very terrifying for anyone who thought they understood how supply and demand worked. The draconian representative scales had shifted to a pale yellow, which Kythara recognized as their species' equivalent of breaking out in a cold sweat. This Captain Rivers, he weaponized economics. Rivers weaponizes everything. Director Vasquez said fondly, last year, he weaponized breakfast. Don't ask me how. I still don't understand the physics involved. But apparently you can use properly prepared pancakes as a delivery system for battlefield communications equipment. Dr. Kumar leaned forward conspiratorially. The really impressive part was when he convinced an entire enemy battalion to surrender by serving them what he called surrender pancakes. They were just regular pancakes. But he presented them with such tactical precision that the enemy commander assumed they were some kind of psychological warfare and decided resistance was futile. He won a battle with pancakes, General Scythe Claw stated flatly. Technically, he won a war with pancakes, Luna corrected. The surrender pancakes thing started a trend. Now half the human military thinks breakfast food is the ultimate strategic weapon. Admiral Foster has been working on what she calls tactical toast for 6 months. Ambassador Kythara was taking notes again, though she suspected her superiors would never believe half of what she was writing down. Are all of your military officers like this? Oh no. Director Vasquez laughed. Rivers is actually one of our more conventional thinkers. You should meet Colonel Harper sometime. She's the one who figured out how to use poetry as a siege weapon. Poetry, War Queen Mandible Death repeated, her compound eyes reflecting what could only be described as existential dread. Weaponized literature. Dr. Kumar clarified helpfully. Harper discovered that if you broadcast sufficiently terrible poetry at enemy positions, it creates a kind of psychological effect that makes organized resistance impossible. Something about the cognitive dissonance of experiencing art so bad it becomes transcendent. Luna giggled. The best part is that she doesn't even write bad poetry on purpose. She's just naturally terrible at it. But she's so enthusiastic that it somehow becomes this weird form of performance art that breaks people's brains. Enemy commanders just surrender rather than listen to another stanza. The silence that followed was the kind usually reserved for moments of profound religious significance or catastrophic system failures. The Gornathi Death Speaker, whose vocal cords were specifically evolved to inspire terror, spoke in a whisper. Your military personnel, they don't simply defeat enemies. They convert them? Convert, convince, confuse, or completely restructure their entire worldview, Director Vasquez confirmed cheerfully. That's why we prefer to handle diplomatic situations ourselves. Military solutions tend to be very permanent and often result in the other party questioning fundamental aspects of reality. For instance, Dr. Kumar continued, warming to his topic, there was the incident with Commander Walsh and the Sector 7 trade dispute. Standard diplomatic protocol would have involved months of negotiations, careful economic analysis, maybe some minor sanctions. Walsh looked at the situation for about 40 minutes and then somehow convinced all parties involved that they had been thinking about commerce completely wrong. Wrong how? Several delegates asked simultaneously. He introduced them to the concept of aggressive cooperation, Luna explained. Basically, instead of competing for resources, all the parties started competing to see who could be most helpful to everyone else. It completely revolutionized interstellar trade in that entire sector. Ambassador Kythara felt a headache developing behind all four of her eyes. Let me understand this correctly. Your military officers routinely solve problems by fundamentally altering how other species think about reality. Only when they're trying to be subtle, Director Vasquez admitted. When they're not worried about collateral damage, they tend to use more direct methods, such as, General Scythe Claw asked, though his tone suggested he was already regretting the question. Dr. Kumar pushed his glasses up his nose again. Well, there was the time Major Chen ended the Vorthan Civil War by relocating their entire planet to a more convenient solar system. Apparently the war was being fought over resource allocation, so she just moved them somewhere with better resources. She moved a planet, War Queen Mandible Death said slowly. It was a small planet, Luna added, as if this somehow made it less insane, and the engineering was really elegant. She used a combination of gravitational manipulation and what she called applied stellar mechanics. The Vorthans were so impressed they made her an honorary goddess. An honorary goddess. Ambassador Kythara repeated weakly. She still gets prayer requests, Director Vasquez said proudly, most of them asking for more convenient planetary relocations, but the tourism industry in that sector has never been better. The Krellian representative, who had been silent for most of the discussion, finally found his voice. Director Vasquez, with respect, if your military personnel are capable of such comprehensive solutions, why do you insist on handling diplomatic matters personally? Director Vasquez's expression became serious for the first time during the entire meeting. Because, Ambassador Threx, military solutions leave no room for choice. When Colonel Martinez redesigned your space station's defenses, he didn't ask permission. When Captain Rivers restructured that sector's economy, the pirates didn't get to vote on it. When Major Chen moved an entire planet, she made the decision for billions of beings. Military minds solve problems permanently, Dr. Kumar added quietly. They identify what they see as the optimal outcome and then make it happen, regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. It's very efficient, but it doesn't leave much room for disagreement or alternative perspectives. Luna had put away her communication device entirely now. That's why we're here instead of them. Diplomacy is about finding solutions that everyone can live with. Military solutions are about finding solutions that work, whether everyone likes them or not. The chamber fell into a contemplative silence as the assembled delegates processed this information. Finally, the Etherian battle monk spoke. You're saying that Earth's military doesn't attend peace summits not because they lack the capability, but because they have too much capability. Exactly, Director Vasquez confirmed. If Admiral Thompson were here instead of me, and someone presented her with the Gornathi-Vex territorial dispute, and she wouldn't spend weeks analyzing cultural factors and economic impacts. She would identify the most efficient solution and implement it within hours. What would that solution look like? The Death Speaker asked, though he seemed hesitant to hear the answer. Dr. Kumar consulted his notes. Based on her previous work, Probably something involving relocating both civilizations to purpose-built habitats that perfectly meet their needs, restructuring the local space-time geometry to optimize resource distribution, establishing a self-maintaining administrative system that makes future conflicts mathematically impossible. She would relocate entire civilizations to solve a territorial dispute. General Scythe-Claw's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. She wouldn't see it as relocation, Luna explained. She would see it as optimization of population distribution for maximum cultural and economic efficiency. The end result would be that everyone gets exactly what they need, but they wouldn't have any choice in how that happens. Or Queen Mandible Death's antennae were vibrating rapidly. And this would be considered a standard military solution? Actually, that would be considered a remarkably restrained military solution, Director Vasquez admitted. Thompson tends to think small scale. If you really want to see comprehensive problem solving, you should ask General Morrison about his approach to conflict resolution. I'm not sure I want to know, Ambassador Kythara said. But her academic curiosity was stronger than her survival instincts. Morrison believes that most conflicts stem from insufficient understanding between species, Dr. Kumar explained. So his standard operating procedure involves what he calls enforced empathy enhancement. Which means? Multiple voices asked. Luna grinned. But it wasn't entirely a happy expression. He temporarily merges the consciousness of opposing leaders so they literally cannot understand their own position without simultaneously understanding their opponent's perspective. It makes negotiation very efficient, but the psychological effects can be intense. He merges consciousness, the death speaker said faintly, only temporarily. Director Vasquez assured them quickly, and only the parts related to the specific conflict. It's very precise, very controlled, and absolutely terrifying if you're not expecting it. The success rate is 100%, Dr. Kumar added. You can't really maintain a territorial dispute when you understand exactly why your opponent needs the territory just as clearly as you understand your own needs. General Scythe-Claw had gone completely still, his cybernetic systems apparently struggling to process threat assessments that exceeded their design parameters. Your military personnel routinely alter consciousness, manipulate reality, relocate planets, and restructure entire civilizations as standard operating procedures. Those are just the subtle approaches, Luna said cheerfully. You should see what they do when they're in a hurry. Ambassador Kythara decided she definitely did not want to know what human military personnel did when they were in a hurry. Director Vasquez clapped her hands together, the sound somehow managing to be both pleasant and ominous. But that's exactly why we're here instead of them. Diplomatic solutions may take longer, but they preserve everyone's agency and dignity. Military solutions are faster, but they tend to leave the participants feeling like they've been through a particularly aggressive form of therapy. Plus, Dr. Kumar added, our way leaves room for cookies and pleasant conversation. Military personnel don't really do small talk. They're more focused on what Captain Rivers calls solution implementation protocols. Luna had started typing on her device again. Oh wow, guys, you should see the reaction to my live tweets from this summit. The hashtag Human Diplomacy is Terrifying is trending across 17 different social networks. Or Queen Mandible Death looked up sharply. You've been broadcasting this conversation? Just the highlights, Luna assured her. Don't worry. I didn't include any of the classified stuff about consciousness merging or planet relocation. I stuck to the safe topics like weaponized poetry and tactical pancakes. The assembled delegates exchanged glances that clearly communicated a shared realization. If weaponized poetry and tactical pancakes were the safe topics, what exactly constituted classified information in human military doctrine? Ambassador Kythara found herself asking the question that had been building throughout the entire meeting. Director Vasquez, are you telling us that Earth's diplomatic corps exists primarily to protect other species from Earth's military? Director Vasquez smiled, and for a moment her expression carried just a hint of the same dangerous competence that lurked behind her colleagues' casual discussions of reality-warping weapons. Oh no, Ambassador Kythara. We exist to protect other species from having to make decisions they might regret. Dr. Kumar nodded sagely. It's much better for everyone if we can find solutions through conversation rather than having our military friends find solutions through applied physics and aggressive problem-solving methodologies. The military is very efficient, Luna added. But efficiency isn't always compatible with things like personal choice or gradual adaptation to new circumstances or having time to emotionally process major life changes. The death speaker leaned forward slightly. What happens when diplomatic solutions are genuinely impossible? When all attempts at negotiation fail? Director Vasquez's smile never wavered, but something cold and calculating flickered in her eyes. That has never happened. Never? General Scytheclaw asked. Never, she confirmed pleasantly. We're very good at our jobs. We find solutions that work for everyone, because the alternative is letting our military friends find solutions that work, period. Dr. Kumar adjusted his glasses one final time. It's amazing how motivated people become to find reasonable compromises when they understand that the alternative involves having their fundamental understanding of reality restructured by enthusiastic professionals with unlimited resources and absolutely no concept of impossible. Luna giggled. Plus, we're just more fun to negotiate with. Military personnel take everything so seriously. They don't appreciate the social aspects of diplomacy. Ambassador Kythara sat back in her chair, finally understanding why every species in the galaxy considered humans the most terrifying warriors in known space, and why they always sent their diplomats to peace talks. It wasn't because humans were peaceful. It was because human diplomats were the only thing standing between the galaxy and human military personnel who treated physics as a suggestion, reality as a rough draft, and problems as opportunities for creative restructuring of fundamental universal constants. Well then, she said finally, shall we proceed with the territorial dispute resolution? Director Vasquez beamed. Absolutely. I think you'll find our proposed solution very reasonable. Dr. Kumar has prepared a comprehensive framework that addresses everyone's core concerns while maintaining full respect for cultural autonomy and individual choice. As the meeting proceeded, Ambassador Kythara couldn't help but notice that the proposed solution was, indeed, remarkably reasonable, elegantly designed, and completely satisfactory to all parties involved. She also couldn't help but notice that every delegate around the table agreed to it with the enthusiastic cooperation of beings who had suddenly realized that reasonableness was not just preferable, but absolutely essential for the continued existence of reality as they knew it. The human diplomatic corps, she realized, wasn't just good at their jobs, they were terrifyingly good at their jobs. And that, Ambassador Kythara noted in her final report, was probably the most frightening thing of all.